Welcome to the April 2024 edition of This Month in Payroll. I'm Claire Soccio, a partner in PwC's Payroll Advisory Practice. This month, we will explore the WGEA Gender Equality Reporting, focusing on the payroll aspects of the annual submission, which is due at the end of May. The Fair Work Commission's most recent findings from gender pay equity research, guidance from the Fair Work Ombudsman about what it considers to be the essential features of a good remediation. Last month, we discussed the takeaways from the Workplace Gender Equality Agency's publication of 2022-23 gender pay gap data for private sector employers with 100 or more employees. The published data reported a 19% national median pay gap for total remuneration, which includes base salary plus bonuses, overtime, allowances, and superannuation. A number of employers received significant media attention about their specific gender pay gap when compared to national, sector, and peer performance. The results also instigated curiosity and discussion amongst employees, potential job candidates, and customers. Only 2 months on from the publication of those results, employers are now in the depths of preparing the annual submission for the year ended 31 March 2024. This is due by the 31st of May 2024, and these will be the results that are published by WGEA in early 2025. In addition to market comparisons, this submission will allow year-on-year comparisons to be made at an employer level. It's therefore essential that employers understand the drivers for changes in performance and progress against commitments that have been made. There are a few changes and additions to the 2024 submission compared to prior years. Firstly, there's now mandatory reporting of certain data fields that were previously voluntary. Examples include the year of birth and primary workplace location for each employee, the remuneration of the CEO, heads of business, and casually employed managers, and additional information about preventative and accountability measures for sexual harassment. Secondly, there's a new mandatory question about whether different cohorts of employees, including permanent, contract or fixed term, and casuals, have access to employer-funded paid parental leave. And lastly, there's a new voluntary question about whether, and if so, how many employees have taken paid family and domestic violence leave. There is no doubt that the WGEA reporting requirements are extensive and onerous, especially those components relating to payroll-related data. Reflecting on the lessons learned from the first publication, there are questions you may want to ask today to be confident in the completeness and accuracy of your 2024 submission. Firstly, who within your organisation is responsible for preparing and overseeing the submission? Recognising the complexity and potential brand implications of this information, do they have the necessary time and access to subject matter experts for each of the data points, including company policy and strategy, pay data, and actions taken? The breadth of information required to be collected likely warrants the involvement of a range of specialists, which, depending on your organisation's size and complexity, may include HR, payroll, analytics, and ER specialists. Some data might not be readily available or accessible in a centralised format, so effort will be needed to consolidate an accurate record. And there's some optionality in the submission, such as the snapshot date, which we will discuss in a moment, which will ultimately impact the data and analysis you report year on year. So there should be steps to document the rationale and to record the approval for these important decisions. Secondly, in respect of the payroll data used to calculate the GPG, how has your snapshot date for the workforce profile been selected? This is any date within the 1-year review period at which a snapshot of the active employees is taken, and the pay analysis is then performed across the prior 12 months for those active employees at that snapshot date. If seasonal fluctuations or business-specific changes mean that your workforce profile has changed across the year, for example, with a surge of casual employment or a significant restructure, there may be a flow-on implication to the GPG analysis. Employers should be confident that their chosen snapshot date, which WGEA does recommend is consistent year to year, will produce representative data for their organisation's normal workforce. The third question, who is approving the accuracy of the payroll data? We know that any large payroll data set is fraught with challenges, including inconsistency, data gaps, and duplication. It is important that the right subject matter experts are supporting the extraction and approving the accuracy and completeness of the payroll data. In addition, the base salary and total remuneration needs to be reported on a full-time equivalent annualised basis. For employees who've worked for only part of the year, and for casual and part-time employees, the earnings need to be grossed up and annualised to a full-time, full-year equivalent in accordance with the methodology outlined by WGEA. And importantly, what is your strategy for communicating your GPG and for monitoring ongoing progress? The publication of the GPG provides an opportunity to promote your approach to gender equality, pay transparency, and diversity and inclusion. Many employers did not include an employer statement with their 2023 results. Without a strategic explanation, the results alone can paint an incomplete or inaccurate picture of an organisation's commitment to gender equality. In our experience, it is important to be transparent about GPG results and the reasons driving any gap. As the 2024 submissions will enable a year-on-year comparison, there's an opportunity to highlight the progress already achieved and the ongoing commitments to improvement. Now may also be the right time to reflect on the annual reporting process and to embed changes to make this analysis more efficient and to enable ongoing monitoring and measurement of incremental progress throughout the year. Continuing with the theme of gender pay equity, this month the Fair Work Commission released Stage 2 of its Gender Pay Equity Research Project, which is looking at occupations and industries in which there may be gender pay inequity and potential undervaluation of work and qualifications. Stage 1 of this research identified 13 modern awards used to set pay in the 29 large, highly feminised occupations that were considered most likely to be impacted by pay equity issues. These occupations included, amongst others, nurses, midwives, aged and disability carers and vet nurses, early childhood and primary school teachers, hairdressers and beauty therapists, and retail sales assistants and managers. The Stage 2 research has involved a detailed review of 12 of these 13 awards to assess the history of wage fixing and work value assessments. The purpose being to consider whether any occupation may have been subject to gender-based undervaluation. The Aged Care Award was excluded from the scope of this phase of research since it's already the subject of a separate work value case. Interested parties have been invited to respond to the Stage 1 and 2 reports before 29th of April, and the annual wage review expert panel will also consider both reports in accordance with the gender equality objectives of the Fair Work Act. The Commission is expected to publish its final report in September this year, at which time we'll provide an update of the outcomes. And now to the topic of wage compliance and remediation. During the past month, a decision was handed down which imposed the second highest penalties on record for the underpayment of wages and creation of false pay records. Of note, penalties of $92,000 and $105,000 were imposed respectively on the business's group general manager and HR coordinator for their respective involvement in the underpayments. Recognising the Federal Court's conclusion of deliberate, deceitful and unscrupulous behaviour in this particular case, we don't expect the lessons to be directly relevant for our audience, so we aren't covering that decision in any more detail. Rather, we'll turn our attention to the regulator's expectations of employers who are conducting a remediation of historical underpayments. At our recent Workforce Leaders Forum, Deputy Ombudsman Michelle Carey outlined what the Fair Work Ombudsman expects and considers from employers, and noted that these factors will influence the flow when determining compliance and enforcement outcomes. So what are they? The Ombudsman's essential 8 features of good remediation include comprehensive time and scope, being that the program design should assess the maximum period that data and records allow, not just the statutory limitation period. And it should extensively review payroll across the business. Targeted or sampled reviews are considered by the FRO to be indicators of poor project design unless they are explainable. Secondly is worker-centred design, where employers should take responsibility for failures in systems or record keeping by applying worker favourable assumptions to any data gaps and also to any set-off of entitlements. Thirdly is that interest should be paid on any underpayments and uplifts applied to top-up payments or buffers. And where underpayments are significant, employers should also pay for the employee to seek independent tax and financial advice. Fourth, employers should consult and communicate, and that's with both workers and unions where relevant, about entitlement reviews and future processes being implemented to resolve issues and achieve compliance. This should allow workers access to sufficient information about how their entitlements are calculated and give them an opportunity to request a more detailed review. The fifth is to implement full integrated corrective actions. The FRO expects investment in payroll and compliance capability and training, that is, the people leading and making decisions about payroll, as well as the systems, processes, and technology that support this capability. They also expect more detailed and regular analytics and auditing of payroll variances and testing of risk controls. The sixth expectation focuses on future corporate governance, and that includes rigorous arrangements and accountability for compliance that is set at a senior level. This should include close alignment between actual payroll operations and organisational risk frameworks, and regular reporting to boards or executive bodies in relation to workplace relations compliance. To this point, an enforceable undertaking given to the Ombudsman this month by insurance entity IAG included the most significant commitments for board oversight ever included in an EU. And that was a commitment to regular reporting to the board on the implementation of a new time and attendance system and compliance monitoring. The seventh is frank and transparent disclosure, providing the FRO with extensive detail on how underpayments are calculated, including pay rules, assumptions, methodology information, and models. And lastly, responding to regulator concerns. The FRO expects employers to make reasonable adjustments to their remediation approach and to respond to its concerns throughout the course of the remediation. The Ombudsman is expected to formally publish these expectations in its remediation guide in due course. In the meantime, if you missed this forum and would like to catch up on the full conversation with Ombudsman Anna Booth and Deputy Ombudsman Michelle Carey, you can watch on demand via the link on your screen. And that's it for our April edition of This Month in Payroll. If you would like to revisit any of our prior updates, they're available on our website at pwc.com.au/payroll. And if you have any questions or need for support, please reach out to myself or your usual PwC contact. Until next time, have a great month in payroll.